Hey there everyone, welcome to another repair. Tonight we've got an A2141 classic sort of situation hopefully, and it's always a case of has it gone too far or can it be saved. So we'll pop this one open, measure the NAND areas, fingers crossed we actually have a win, rather than lately I've been getting a fair number of them where it's already too late. Either Apple's tried powering them up too many times or just bad luck. So hopefully, fingers crossed, this one's a better one. Okay, we've got it open. There is definitely some dust build up through the vents, so it's quite likely that we do have a damaged regulation, or maybe if we're lucky we have a shorted PP bus. We want the PP bus to be shorted ideally because that is the safest failure mode we have for this. Let's get the battery disconnected before we do any probing. Okay, get a continuity meter. Alright, on this particular board we have NANDs on both sides. Okay, check this one. 6700, that's good. Check this one. Alright, so we've got a very hard short on this. So being a very hard short, that does give us some hope, because it's more likely then that it's a capacitor that's failed as opposed to the regulator. But we can't tell until we take this out. So let's get the board out and have a look. We didn't check PP bus. And PP bus is just fine. Straight away looking at the underside of the board, you can see there's corrosion and issues all in this section here. Not so bad over here. There's a little bit of corrosion, but not enough. There's a couple of caps that should be replaced, but I can tell the intensity of the corrosion down here is moderately strong. So we'll go and have a look under the microscope. Okay, immediately we can see this is the culprit cap. I mean, look at how shattered that thing is. I mean, that's some gold standard shattering there. Now the nice thing is here at the moment, from what I can tell, the voltage regulator doesn't have any oily or dark discoloration on it, which means that it's quite possible that the capacitor went in one big event and it didn't slowly fail and cause the regulator to perhaps put the wrong voltage into the NANDs. So fingers crossed, we may have a win here, even though it looks pretty ugly. Give it a bit of a brush. There is actually more damage that needs to be done before we bring this thing back up as well. So we can look at that cap there is in a bad state. These ones may need to be replaced. We'll see. We'll take that off and see what sort of damage they have. Certainly that one, definitely that one there. It's also on the verge of failing. And reiterating, see, there's no discoloration on this regulator. Typically when the regulator is at fault in failing, you'll get a dark spot or similar sort of odd patterning on the chip. Okay, moving up, lots of surface corrosion, some resistors are getting close. The NAND is covered in corrosion. The cap's borderline. These caps are borderline. That's a pretty bad state. We've got corrosion eating into the tracks here. Some more stuff going on here. You can see we've got broccoli growing. Just going to have a look at the other side. We've got probably troubles with USB-C ports. They'll need to be replaced. That is probably a LDO cap required for this to operate properly. The NAND areas are looking a bit messy too, and definitely that cap should be replaced, probably those three as well. There's a lot of work on this one, a lot of work. Okay, to guide and remind me, I'm just going to pink dot the areas. Oh, we've got trouble down here as well. Yep. This is definitely recovery only job. Okay, so we're going to start with removing the regulator, the two caps. See how we go. Even though the regulator looks okay, I prefer not to trust them. I prefer not to trust them after they've had this sort of event occur. So I'm going to see if we can take everything off in one shot. Save coming back for multiple heat cycles. Okay, so here we go with the resistance on that side now. Probably going to still be a little bit low because it's hot, but hopefully no short. Okay, 1K, that's good. That's a good indication that our NAND should be okay. It's not a guarantee, but it's a good indication. I want to deal with this one as well. We need to have a look and see what that part value is. So 1 microfarad, 10 volt, 402. Interestingly, I don't seem to have a 10 volt variant, so I've got the 16 volt variant here, and that should do the job perfectly fine in this case. There can be times where you really cannot even afford to jump up a voltage rating, mostly for extremely sensitive ESR applications, but in this situation it's going to be fine. Yeah, that's sat down nice and quick. That's good. Moderate amount of mess to clean up here. First thing we're going to do is clean up those pads for the chip. Wait for the iron to heat up. And then we're going to sort the capacitor pads out. Next thing we have to do is hot air wick those pads down for the chip. Generally speaking, hot air wicking is less violent towards the board, but it can be more violent towards you, simply because if you don't have some good tweezers to hold the wick, you may end up hurting yourself. Okay, we've lifted one part there, that's not a drama at all. I'm just going to bring it back down. That was a reluctant little fellow. Didn't help that I was all nervous. It always feels like a performance review when you're doing these chips. Alright, that cap is actually not properly down. So we're going to have to prepare that so that when we do come through with the hot air for the chip, it will join in the party. So we're going to assist it slightly by just putting a little bit of leaded solder just somewhere down there. That's like a billion times too much. Yep, well, yeah, we're really killing it, literally. Alright, that'll do. When the flux and the heat come along, it will make itself look a lot prettier. Clean up the junk over here, if we can. Some of the stuff is very difficult to get off the board or get access to. Bring in the Reaper to try and draw this out. I mean, it's probably not critical in any means, anyway, I should say, but I do like to have it at least as clear as possible. It's way too much flux. Substantially too much flux. I don't know what I was thinking there. Sunday night idiocracy. Alright, we'll have to live with that. Back to our board view, making sure we get the orientation right. So we need pin 1 down towards this notch here. We are on the right area of the board. You can see we are not on the CPU side, we're on the underside, down in the bottom left hand corner. It's important that you check the orientation of the board and your chip, because there are a couple of examples with these machines where it can look like you're looking at the right board area, but you are not. Believe me, I've been tricked myself, and it was just by pure luck that I managed to catch it before it was too late. Normally I would try and put the caps down concurrently, but I'm not feeling that brave today. So we're going to go with chip down first, then we'll do the caps. Okay, 450 and 40% air. We're going to try and avoid blowing this chip off the board. It's all too easy to happen. But it's a tough call, because if you don't get enough thermal energy down there, it can often not even reflow properly. It just sort of gets stuck in a halfway state. Where's all the flux? I'm just going to check the NAND on the back side. You've got to be really careful here. Sometimes you can put too much heat in, and you don't affect this one, but you do affect the other one. If we look at the schematics, so like we're heating up this area and we flip over to the other side, the NAND's not too far away. So if we look at where the edge of this NAND is, it's actually, yeah, my bad, it's pretty similar to where that one is. So yeah, you can sometimes cook this too much and end up squeezing out on the other side. Okay, we're looking down this bottom area here. This is where we've got that messed up cap. It's not too far from the display connector, and I'm pretty sure it's this one here. It's right next to a couple of big chunky caps. Yeah, that's a PB bus cap. And if we look, okay, so it's sitting by the V input for the VRM, and it's a 2.2, and we're coupled with another 2.2 and about 132. So we can afford to lose that one, and we shouldn't see any detrimental issues. There we go, just shear it off. Clean it up so we get an idea of what sort of damage was done. Alright, pretty happy with that, nice and clear. We won't expect any sort of odd behaviour from that now. Okay, so now we've got this cap here, looking a little dodgy, and these ones here also a bit dodgy. Now what do we got on the other side? Fortunately blank space, so that's good. So we can just go in and hot air that off. We might put a replacement back in there. The tantalums next to it, they could be a little bit of a problem, but we'll see how we go. And these ones, I'm going to replace all three of those. The reason why I want to replace all three of those is because they are on the 1v8 SSD rail. So it's not the 2v5, but it's still an important rail. So you can just grab all three. Come on. Reluctant little SOBs. Alright. Let me see, we had one pad on its way. Okay, we'll get this one off. We've got some heat in the board, so hopefully we can snatch this off without too much drama. I don't think I've got much chance to protect. We'll see how we go here. Clean this array of cap pads up. And do the same here. Good enough. Just going to clean up this area here with an 80/20. See how that comes up all really nice and quick. Clean that NAND as well. Oh yeah, we've got to remember about that one. Okay, this is 100% IPA. Let's get that flux off. Bit of an awkward spot, that one there. Okay, let's get our replacements. Get some flux down on there. These are all, again, the 20 microfarad 10 volt units. It's actually quite amazing that they can get such a density of energy into such a small package. To be fair, in many ways, it probably leads to the issues that we often see where these caps have a tendency of cracking. Maybe I was being a bit ambitious here, trying to get 3 at once, but nothing like a bit of a safe-ish challenge. Once that solder melts, they should jump into place. We got one. Come on, there we go. A little bit of help. Yep, that's good. Or is it? You in? Yep, you're in. It's going to feel like it's a little bit up towards this way of the board. Yeah, definitely feels that way. Let's see if we can just nudge it back. I shouldn't have to, but you know. That's better. Now I can sleep. You're at 1025-603. You're also a classic. 1025-603 is almost always on top of the box. Get ourselves a little bit of flux. Now we should be able to just get this down without causing troubles with that cap. Unless we make a mistake. Okay, that's good. The fact that the board is already warm and how quickly then the parts reflow back down is a good indication as to why it's important to preheat boards in many cases, and why it can take a long time for when you're trying to, on a cold board, reflow something, and it can just take a long time because most of the time is required to get the board to come up to temperature. This is one nasty little C3217 cap. Yeah, I'm really surprised that it hasn't played up before. Schematic, and that's about there. This is also this is a 10-63402, okay. And in this particular case, that one is actually just for 3v3 RTC decoupling. Okay, so that is not an LDO cap, which is why it probably hasn't afflicted the performance in terms of the USB-C input. If it was, say, this one here, LDO, that one there, it could likely have caused issues. Likewise, this one, any of these ones that are specifically for the CD3217's local LDOs, if they have issues, they can certainly cause troubles. I might just brush out under that chip. I don't want there to be dust or anything like that. That's going to start charcoaling because of my reflow work. Get the airbrush and blow out. I'm getting impatient here. I think we got a little bit carried away there, the flux. Now I want to get it off the... Time to bring in the second pair of tweezers to save the day. Just take off that excess flux. Clean the other ones. There we go. Should sit down pretty quickly. good. Alright, I believe that is everything. We're just now going to double check our 2v5 NAND rails. We should check that 1v8 rail as well. Always, when it comes to this kind of work, it makes it easier on your heart and mind if you double check things before you do the power up. Okay, so heading to 1K, so that's what we want. That's good. And even though we didn't do any actual work on this side in terms of the 2v5, again, double check. 1K, that's good. Now we did do some work on the 1v8 section, so it's over here. 370. I think I have my polarity backwards, 1K there. Okay, 1K, we had the reverse polarity. Let's see, what else? Oh, and of course the CD 3217. Oops. Again, that looks good. There was that one more section, which is down here. This cap here. Oops, that's called slippage. Nervousness. Okay, 400 increasing, so that's good too. What about the GPU? What are we doing with the GPU? And that's looking good too. Alright, that's everything that we did that I'm aware of. Because this has had multiple areas of corrosion, I'm going to just quickly go over again. Make sure there's nothing that I missed like that. Alright, it's not terrible, but it's also not great. Let's have a look and see what that rail is. Okay, that's PP Bus G3 hot. So we can actually just remove that one and it'll be fine. There's no point putting a replacement on. Okay, we just found this here and we need to see what that is, because that is a fairly decent amount of corrosion and it's probably feeding this VRM, and if that disconnects or goes high on the resistance, it could make the VRM misbehave, which may in turn affect the GPU power, which of course could have catastrophic issues. Okay, so it looks like it's a 1 ohm 402 resistor and it feeds into VCC. So yeah, it's important. We're gonna have to replace that one. Fun part is getting it off. For the sake of my sanity, I'm gonna take the display flex off. Alright, so here we go. I gotta admit, that came off a little easier than I thought. And as you can see, it was getting close to becoming detached. You see, we've got basically only about 25% of the pad active there. And now we've got 100% of the pad. Let's get that reheat on. Oh, that was very nice. Nice and quick. Minimal damage. Minimal impact. I like that. Okay, this here, I think we'll have a look at along the edge. I'm a little worried about that. How it's got that little halo of discoloration around there. Okay, fortunately that discoloration halo is not showing any signs of being on the actual edges of the pins themselves, so we'll give that a little bit of 80-20 wipe and we should be okay. I feel like we're ready to go now. Actually, before we do anything, I need to go and clean this out. One of the most common mistakes I make after doing this sort of work is forgetting to put the display connector back on. So fortunately I've remembered this time. The best way to reassemble these machines is to use some tape to hold back these flexes. If you don't, it's a little bit maddening to say the least. It looks like we've still got some trash in there. We'll blow that out. Alright, one last moment. I'm going to double check those 2v5 rails. Paranoia. 6.7, 800, 900. That's looking good. Okay. At this point, if something goes wrong, then there's probably not a lot you could have done. It doesn't matter how many times I do this, it's always still nervous when you get to this point and you're about to plug the power in. So what we're looking for is ideally the battery will start charging. We'll see a stepped leap of charging current. We want 20 volts obviously. What we don't want to see is it doing a few steps and then restarting, and doing a few steps and then restarting. If that happens, basically the NANDs are already dead. Plug in. So we've got our 20 volts. We're starting to step. Went straight to 3 amps, 2 amps. Oh, okay. So there's been some issues, it's complaining. So we'll just press a button. Not sure why it's jumping around on that 20 volts. So we'll try a different port. Shouldn't be doing it like this. Let's try another port. We could have a bad connector. I think we might have a bad connector. Okay, we're doing a proper charge stepping here now. It's a nice clean stepping as well. So it means that the system is probably asleep, which it does look like. What might have been happening there is that the battery is flat. It was trying to draw all the system power directly from the USB-C, couldn't quite do it, and it obviously decided to calm itself down, shut down, give the battery a chance to come back. The behavior of these machines after they have had a sudden failure like this due to a shorted cap and things like that is generally quite unpredictable, particularly when it is on the 2v5 NAND side, because essentially that is the power to the SSD has been abruptly killed, and you don't know what write states were happening at the time of that NAND being killed. Further to the fact that the other NANDs were perfectly okay, so if you're doing a distributed writing of data, you've got a undefined state there. So we've come up very nicely here. We hopefully in a couple of minutes we can get a boot. We have a win. This person's going to be happy. Okay, we were lucky again this time, got that one fixed, and this was an interesting one, and it's one that I would say is the sort of repair that can trip up people who maybe are a little bit too impatient to get the job finished or don't bother to look a little bit beyond where the immediate fault is. So in this instance we had the one very shorted cap by the 2v5 NAND section, but there were also many other issues on the board. Now, maybe all those other issues on the board may not have actually ended up affecting the ability to boot and recover data from this. However, there was enough faults on there that were close enough to failure that it's quite possible that in this case they could have been halfway through doing a backup on Time Machine or something, and then the system fails. And it could have been on the graphics section, the VREG section for the graphics. It could have been elsewhere on the 2v5 NANDs. There were a bunch of unknowns there, and quite possibly if it had failed again in those other areas, it may have actually caused the total loss of data just simply because of the damage involved. To be fair, so long as the NANDs and the T2 are okay, you can usually migrate that to a known working board. Most people don't want to go through the expense of that, but yeah, it is technically still possible. The best thing, however, to do is to just make sure you take a look over the board after you've dealt with the main fault to make sure there aren't any other faults sitting in the queue waiting to have their turn at destroying the data. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed that. Certainly it was a bit of a different one for me. It was a good example of it's not always just one fault on the board. Thank you again for watching, and I will see you on the next one. Until then, you all take care. I'll catch you later.